I'm so excited. I'm going to see Diana Ross in July. And I'm feeling a little Diana Ross-like. I'll try to contain myself. Okay. The microphone. Okay. Want to ground you back to being fully known and fully loved. When we were at the women's retreat, I think it was only 3 weeks ago, maybe not even, we learned the 6 core longings of man and women. And some of them that are related to this are a core longing, being loved, feeling safe, and being understood. And I think that's really connected to what we're talking about in this piece about being fully known and fully loved. Certainly, we are understood by our God, and we are loved, and we are safe in Him. Now our job is to create that with the people around us. Letting people know us, love us. Sometimes that's even harder than loving and knowing others. So that's where we were, and I don't know how many of you were here for vulnerability? Okay, we got this half of the room. I'd love to hear 3 things, or 3 different people, anything you did with that, with your life group or with your life. Any action you took. And I'm going to give you this because people said they viewed the video and couldn't hear the people in the audience. So, anything you did different as a result of that? Deb.
Yes, you talked about sharing both weaknesses but also our strengths. And so we used that in the prayer team to, as we were going through a healing care group, that we shared not only our weaknesses but also asked them to bring their strengths so that we could fully know them in their strengths and support them in that.
Okay, clearly I have work to do in motivating. Thank you, Tim.
You know, I'll always talk. Thank you. So the thing that helped me, Elle, was I think that for Beth and I both, we were just more intentional about creating that vulnerable space by leading off that way as the leaders.
Yeah, I practiced something you practiced. You modeled it. And if you want to create vulnerability, you have to be vulnerable. And to that intentionality of sharing something that in my life group, that's been hard. And that's always risky, but there's no substitute for it. So to create vulnerability, you had to be vulnerable.
And always risky. Yeah, that's the definition of being vulnerable is to take. It's a risk taking, to share yourself, to be fully known. You might not fully love me if you fully know me. Was the point of some of our conversation, and yet, as Brene Brown says, it's the vulnerability is the first thing I look for in you, and the last thing I want you to see in me, and that is just silly, isn't it? So we have to get over that. So I'm going to continue that theme of creating a safe environment in your life group that people are willing to share the tough things as well as the good things. Easy to share the good things. And I talked last time about the couple who told us that they were getting divorced. They were in our life group. And we heard nothing about any trouble until the deed was done. And that really challenged me in my thinking of, wow, if you don't talk about that kind of thing in your life group, and it doesn't have to be in the full life group, but even with if either of those members of that couple had come to us as individuals, but that had not happened either. And so how do you create a space where, yeah, I can do life with you and you're still going to love me? And I think it connects to what Jean did this morning. That's creating a safe place. That's that bridge building he was talking about. That if you act like you have some walls and around some topics, you may not hear about them from life group leaders. I'm thinking of a member of your group who maybe has just found their child has just told them that he or she is gay. Would they think that they could talk about that at your life group? Or I had an abortion 5 years ago, and I'm really still struggling with it. Is that a safe place, or are we putting up those walls and saying, can't talk about that here, we're a Christian group? So really well connected. If you haven't heard Jean speak, who went to church first service? Okay. God's doing something there. I walked into, Sean is going to show 2 videos for me today. And I walked into the sanctuary this morning early, and one of the videos was on the big screen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they got it wrong. I'm not teaching in here. My video's on the screen, and it's not going to be in here. And I started to panic, and then I went up to Gene and said, are you showing this video? He goes, oh yeah. I said, that's my video. And I was all bummed out, but I'm thinking God's doing something with that, right? Why would Gene and I pick the same video? Of all the videos, so yeah, it is cool. So we'll see what God has for that. So how do you establish trust and an environment where people are safe to share those things that are hard and good? And the best way is listening. Just to listen when someone has something hard to say. And boy, that's an easy thing to do, isn't it? Someone comes up with something difficult to hear. I had an abortion last week, and I don't know who to talk to. Go to listening. Go to listening. One of my favorite phrases is, tell me more. And I'm opening, I want to hear. I want to listen. But it's how you listen that sets the stage. So I've talked about listening before here at church. How many of you have heard that? Not that we can't hear it again. A couple of you. Maybe half. Okay, I'm going to remind you because it's important, and we're going to go to a deeper level with it too. There's about 100,000 books written on listening, so apparently it's an issue. So hearing it twice is probably not going to be a problem. I teach it all the time, and David would tell you, my sweet dear husband, who's not here because he's fishing, that Elle isn't always so great at it. She'll teach you how, but she's not always so great at it. The trick with listening is how you use your brain while you're doing it. Because while I'm talking at 125 words a minute, you can process 800 to 1,000 words a minute. So we call that excess brain capacity. Good news. While I'm talking, you can be processing. But again, it's how you use it. So I teach 3 levels of listening. The first level is personal. I'm using all my brain power while you're talking to me about your miscarriage. I'm going to pick a couple of these topics that you might hear about in LifeGroup. Woman comes to me and tells me she's had a miscarriage. And boom, I'm human. Right away, I think, what is it now? 33 years ago when I had a miscarriage, and I had been dealing with not having children, thinking I may never have children. I finally get pregnant, and I miscarry. And so I'm back 33 years ago, and this woman has been talking to me, and I haven't heard what she said. And she probably knows it because I'm probably, that look? I was in the past. And level 1 listening, you go to your past or you go to your future. Oh gosh, what would I do if I ever had a miscarriage? Oh man. And my daughter's pregnant. What if she has a miscarriage? Again, I've left the conversation, and I've missed the unique experience this person is talking to me about. How sad. I think that's our default way of listening. We're pretty egotistical. I don't know why God did that, but he made us pretty selfish. I don't go so far as to call it selfish listening, but it kind of is. It's how I remind myself not to do it. And I still get snagged. So to listen at a better level, and if you're a life group leader, you need to be at this second level at least for that hour. Am I making that sound somehow? Oh no, it's this. I can't touch that. Okay. Level 2, you have to consciously choose to shut down, I call it the voices in your head. We all have voices in our head. We have brains. But I need to shut all that down. I can think of that after life group, right? I can think of that in the shower or when I'm getting ready for bed. Right now, I want to be fully present for you. And to me, it's a moment-by-moment reminder because I will get snagged and start thinking about me at any given moment. So choosing to think about that person So then, I want to be curious is another good way to be in level 2. Curious. A young woman tells me she's had a miscarriage. What does that mean for you? Tell me more. Okay? Be curious. Find out. And then level 3 takes even more attention. I'm shutting down everything so that I can be so present. I am actually noticing your body language. I'm noticing the tears in your eyes. I'm noticing the, crossed arms or the shoulders that are getting more and more tense. And I can almost sense an energy. I don't want to sound woo-woo, but we can sense energy, right? Whether somebody is really low or really high, afraid. You can, there's a sense about that. And level 3 listening, it's called empathic listening, empathy, really takes into account all those things. I picture when when I want to be in empathic listening, I picture that I have Dumbo ears and I am just wrapped around you and I am there for just you. Nothing else in the world matters. It's the hospital bedside listening. And when people come to you with emotion in LifeGroup, you need to be able to respond with level 3 listening. We're going to shut everything down. I mean, we're not going to, hey, wait, we're in 1 Corinthians, and we got to finish. Thanks for sharing. Yep, we got to get back to the Bible verse. No. That's what life groups are all about, right? We're shutting everything down, folks, because one of our members is carrying something that he wants to share. So I hope this is in your vein of thinking. So how do you do this empathy thing? Man, I just got finished with 2 weeks, 1 week with a 6-month leadership group, and last week I was with a group I'm going to be with for a year, teaching these senior level leaders empathy. I had some people that were fighting me. We don't do feelings. We don't do emotion. You know what? If you're human, you're doing emotion. I don't probably have to convince you of that because you deal with people and at the heart, and you're comfortable doing that, or you wouldn't be life group leaders. So I've got 2 videos to help us understand this empathy thing. So Sean, we're going to show the one that Jean stole from me because it's so good. This one shows empathy going badly.
It's just, there's all this pressure, And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on.
Ow.
If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
So it's only funny if it's true, right? Does anyone recognize themselves on either side of that? Yeah. And it's not a male-female thing. It really isn't. We like to fix problems. I know, Megan, the reason we didn't meet last time is a child had drowned. Oh my gosh, the empathy needed. And yet there's probably this huge temptation to want to make a meal, right? That's what we do. Take a meal. What does she really need? She needs somebody just to sit with her. And it maybe isn't even listening. It's probably not. It's just, I always picture it as I'm there with you in this pain, and I can handle it. Really powerful. So it's not a fixing thing. And I have seen this video, I think 50 times. I love it. It's such a good reminder. What did she want? What could he have said initially? She says there's this achy feeling and pressure, and she's so afraid it'll never stop. This is hard. What do you say to her? I hear you. Help me understand. Thank you, Brittany, because I'm going to kind of pick on you for a minute, because that's okay. You have to be. She was vulnerable, and she tried an answer, and it's good. I hear you. One phrase that isn't so good is, I understand exactly, or I understand, because you don't. Even though I had a miscarriage, I don't understand what this young woman who's talking to me now is going through. You know, is this her fourth? Is this her fifth? It's just completely different, and she's in it now and I'm not. So one of the temptations is to say, I understand, and try to bite your tongue. Or if you actually say it, say, you know what, I don't. Tell me. Tell me. So that brings us to the next video. Brene Brown is a social scientist who now has researched all the kind of work that I do. I'm so thrilled that I now have science behind what I teach. It really helps because I teach a lot of scientists. They want to know. And she does this great cartoon video on the difference between empathy and sympathy. So it'll get you a giggle or two, but it's pretty powerful, and we'll unpack it.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So let me get some of your thoughts. How did that hit you? Is that new or different?
I think words really are not healing when we think they are. So from many, many, many experiences, taking the time to be with someone is sometimes the greatest gift.
Yeah, we want to fix with our words. My dad died. Can I fix that? There's just no way. Most of the stuff that we hear from other people, there's just nothing you can say. You're right. How else did it, what does it make you think or feel?
I think sometimes those words that are sympathetic are actually wounding and hurting. It's like salt on a wound instead of just saying, I care about what you're going through. Instead of those kind of, I don't know, platitudes or those, yeah, that hurts. When you're in pain, that's the last thing you want.
Yeah, I think it gives the message that I'm not supposed to be feeling this. You know, you had a miscarriage, well, at least you know you can get pregnant. Oh, I guess I'm supposed to be happy? And you want me to be happy because you just said that to me, and I'm going to have a hard time coming up with happy. Yeah. One more thought, comment. I just want to know what's going on in your brains.
Just the willingness to enter in, I think is, what I saw from that video. Not necessarily knowing all the right answers or knowing what to say, but just the willingness to be there. That bear, I like the image of him of just in some ways looking awkward. He looked in that video, he looked awkward, like that he didn't really know what he was doing or going to do or say, but he was willing to be there. And so just that we not letting the fear stop us or the awkwardness stop us to be willing to enter into connection.
I love that phrase that she used, and I've actually tried it. You have to do this very authentically. But do you remember what she said, what the bear said at the end? I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. That works. Not going to try to get the nail out of your head. I can't do it. I'm just so glad you told me. So another piece of listening with empathy is naming the emotion you're seeing. So I told you that level 3 listening, I am watching everything. I'm sensing the energy. I'm seeing your body language. I'm trying to hear the emotion you're experiencing. I don't know if you know that only 7% of the message is the words. 93% of the messages we give each other are tone of voice and body language. So when you're with someone, you don't even know how much you're picking up between the words. And so to try to do active listening on the emotion is very effective. So I don't understand, but maybe you must be feeling great loss. Are you lonely? Are you scared? And it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable for you because you could be wrong. If someone comes to me and tells me they've gotten a cancer diagnosis, that's a scary thing. No, I'm not really scared right now. And most people will do that. I mean, every time I've tried this, if I'm wrong, they will fill in what the better word is. But I'm showing that I'm really trying to hear you. I'm trying to hear your heart. I'm really present. So since we're going to try some of this today, I feel like maybe you'll ask me more questions if I tell you you're going to go try this with some people in the group. What do you want to know or say about empathy and listening?
When when you were just explaining about naming the emotion. Last week I was at work and I had a patient, a Spanish-speaking patient, and she had some issues medically that just weren't making a lot of sense. So we worked on that, and at the end it still wasn't making sense. And I just said, "How are things going?" And she was really quiet. And then I said, "Excuse me, you just look really sad." And then she told in Spanish that she had been in Mexico and been kidnapped. She was a lawyer, and she lost everything and came to the States just a few months ago. It was the saddest story. Had to run for her life with her child. And so it was just one of those things, just naming the emotion, and there was this whole other story behind it. Yeah.
You said sad, and you got an ocean. And because Beth named it, she was also giving permission for this woman to share it. I'm thinking, Megan, of you being in Florida and trying to name an emotion. But that would allow Danae to just feel like I'm safe to talk here. I'm safe to cry here. Someone's going to stand by me. Okay, am I just scaring you all? I see these looks, and I'm not sure what it means. Osei? Can you pass it back?
As I was listening, I was just kind of rewriting things so they make better sense to me. And one thing that I was discovering now and earlier today, that if I'm asking about the why or speak to the why, then I've pretty much missed the boat. So to kind of rephrase a few things so far, as I hear you talk about listening, I hear you encouraging explore the what, the when, the who, the where. Maybe how. I wouldn't say how. I think the why and the how is more of understanding, and like you said, to say that you understand, skipping there to that next phase of understanding is totally passing by what someone is saying. And I do that often. And to say it differently, the best listening, as you're describing, is not logical. That is, if I go to the how or why, what you need to do, because that's fixing, if I understand, I know the why, I imply that and say, here's what you should do. That's the logical part where I'm going to miss the boat on my spouse or anyone else in my life group or in my life if I skip there before exploring and hearing more of what really happened, who, and also what else is going on, as opposed to being a bit too logical, too early, presumptively, and just missing the boat.
It makes me think of the nail again.
Yeah.
She just wanted someone to understand her pain, not how she was going to fix it. She'll get around to that. She'll get around to that. She needs to have somebody to understand her pain. Where she is. Megan, I'm going to have you pass those out soon, but I want 2 more comments.
I think often we do want a formulaic approach to this type of situation. Somebody comes to us with a hard topic, and we want to just be able to, like, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And I'm a nurse, so healthcare workers get to practice this a lot. We get to deal with people that immediately come to us with hard situations, and you're like stuck in like how do I respond? How do I give an empathetic response? I had a patient recently give me a gift that said, it was a plaque that said, it wasn't what you said or what you did, it was how you made me feel. And my first response to that was like, what did I do? Like, replaying that in my head, like, I want to repeat that because obviously that was impactful. But what I hear you saying, what I saw in that is just, and what I've experienced is when you get to a place where you are empathizing, you're feeling those emotions, you already know how to respond because you felt that and you know what you would want in that situation. So it's not really that there's a certain way to respond. You know, everybody's going to need something different. But when you felt it, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I need to be quiet. Maybe I need to ask a question in this. I mean, so, and we have the Holy Spirit. And so we're so blessed to be able to listen, you know, have that as a big tool in our lives. So.
Huge tool in our lives, yes. I mean, I'm often finding myself saying, Lord, what do I need to say? And often the answer is nothing. And some good words too, but really we so want to say something, and to me it's fix it right away, when sometimes just total silence. I love this passage from Ezekiel, and it made me think of this, what we're trying for here. God is saying, I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules. Yeah, we want that softness. And to me, and if I can shift your paradigm, to me the stone is the fixing. When you were just talking about being a nurse, it made me think immediately of doctors and how sometimes you say those doctors don't have any bedside manner. Doctors go to fixing, don't they? They want to sew it up, cut it out, give you a pill. And the nurse's often job is to be the one to sit there and hold your hand during the pain. That's what we're looking for, Sean. Nice and loud.
I'm the one making her use it. Might as well. I think one of the things that's been interesting for me is that I'm seeing a parallel to something that's been going on with me physically. I had several doctors trying to take care of my hands and arms this past year, and a lot of the problem that happened was that they took care of some of the stuff that was going on the surface, which actually made the growth level of my skin deteriorate, and that ended up resulting in this chronic pain that I was experiencing. And it wasn't until I had a doctor who was able to actually say, no, this actually goes a lot deeper, and it's the layer of growth. It's not the layer that I can see right now that needs to be healed. And that kind of seems like what empathy can really open up, is that, you know, of course, if there's a nail sticking out of someone's head, that's obvious. But what if that's not the only thing that's going on?
Oh yeah, Tim.
So it was really ironic when you just gave that quote from Ezekiel, because I was thinking as you were going through this, it sounds exactly like when you mentioned the spirit. It's like, this sounds just so much like the fruits of the flesh versus the fruits of the spirit is what you're really driving at in this thing. And you're so right that with the spirit empowering us, that gives us a whole different set of tools. And the other thing I'm reminded of is in Scazzero's Emotionally Healthy Skills is the incarnational listening. And the essence of that kind of listening is the I-thou relationship, where God is present in you, and the God, the Spirit of God in you and the Spirit of God in me are communing. And then when we bring that in, then there's a whole different dynamic in that relationship that empowers that listening.
Yeah, Jean does a great job this morning about talking about building bridges to connect people, and especially people that are unlike you. And that may happen in life group as well. Someone is taking a stand or has made a life decision that you might not agree with. But again, can you hear it? And so you're demonstrating the body of Christ. A short story, I knew a woman she gave me massages every month. And therapeutic, I needed it. And I got to know her, I'm chatty, so we would talk, and just liked her right away. And she always talked to me about her honey. My mental model was she was married and she talked about her honey, and months went on, and all of a sudden I started to realize she has never used a pronoun about her honey. And she knew, I think maybe somebody from the church had even recommended me to her. She knew I was a believer. And so she's talking about her honey, and are any of you getting what I'm saying? Yeah, so I go home, and Dave also knows her, and I want to love her, and I don't want her to think there's anything between us. And we racked our brains, prayed about what to do. to not embarrass her, but to let her know, I know who you are. I see you, I understand, and I love you. You know, being loved, safe, and understood. And so the Christian thing to do was to bring her a bottle of wine, because I knew she liked wine. I brought her a bottle of wine at Christmas time and said, this is for you. And I'd seen an email and gotten the name of her partner. And I said, this is for you and Gina to celebrate Christmas. And she kind of trembled and got me face down on that table really quick. And as she's working my muscles, she's saying, I so wanted to tell you and share with you how much I love Gina. And I was afraid. And she was afraid. You know why? Why was she afraid to tell me? She knew I was a Christian. Whew. There's a lesson for you. And I just made it my cause to just love on her. And she and Gina ended up striving to adopt a baby. And I've got all my Christian stuff about that, you know, all that noise in my head. But I'm going to love her through this. And she was the first one, I was the first one she called when there was a crisis in that process. Late at night, early in the morning. And we have a deep, deep friendship, and it's safe for me to talk about my faith, and it's safe for her to talk about her family, which is very different than mine. It just opens up possibility, and that story will make even more sense when you hear Jean this morning. Okay, let's pass out. This is just a quick cheat sheet on the 3 levels of learning, three levels of listening. And what I'm going to ask you to do is get in groups of 4, because we have that here. Maybe you can be with these 3, and we'll have those 4. For Joel and John, can you huddle up with Ben and Martha? So yeah, they're in the back. Okay, let me tell you what you're going to do. I think that you are at a much higher level than these 40 leaders I was in a room with this week, who basically said you should never do this kind of stuff at the workplace, which is hooey. And I finally brought him around, but I think you're at a higher level. So I want you to stretch in this exercise. So when you huddle up, you're going to do one of 2 things. One of you might be going through something now that you would love some empathetic listening around. And if you're in a place that you feel that's safe to share and you'd be willing, that would be a great gift to your team members who could practice this kind of listening and responding. If there's nobody in the group that wants to do that, and that's okay, what I'd like for you to do is come up with some scenarios that you have seen or might expect in a life group. I gave you a couple in the beginning. My husband has left me. We had a miscarriage. I'm infertile. I have cancer. I want you to make a couple of those, because they're going to happen, folks, if you're doing life with people. What are some of those things? Maybe even some that have come up in your life group and you didn't even know what to say. And then talk about what would be a good response. I'd love for you to try naming the emotion. It's just an amazingly important skill to have. And Brene gives us the tip on how to do that. When you tell me something incredibly painful and the little bubble over the head, I need to get the bubble over my head of when did I experience something similar. So it's not like she had a miscarriage, I had a miscarriage. If she had a miscarriage, she had a deep loss, a deep disappointment, a life disappointment. When have I had a life disappointment? Got it. And then to say, man, I'm wondering if you're feeling this. Because if you can get that bubble over your head, you'll have that emotion. Am I making sense, Joel? Okay. Exactly, because that's thank you, because that's level 1 listening. Oh, well, you know, when I had one, and da-da-da-da, yeah. Is that doing her any good? Oh my gosh, it just sounds so selfish. Yeah, tempting. Oh, I know exactly what you're going through. I did too. I lost my dad. I know exactly what you're going through. No, you don't. And you lost yours 10 years ago, and I'm here with my heart broken. But it's it's just our culture has not taught this well. So do you have the assignment right? So maybe stand up, get a little energy going, and huddle up in your foursomes, and either listen to a true story or come up with some of these scenarios and what you would say. What are your lessons? What are your takeaways from this morning? Steve.
We have more questions than anything. Okay. Yeah. So in the secular or worldly, when you're involved with those, what's the bottom line when you get to the, to the listening end of things? Because in being involved with the prayer ministry, I'm ready to go to, okay, we've heard all this, now let's do something with it. Okay, let's pray for you regarding this stuff. And I felt myself starting to go to that because I got to that point where, okay, we've listened, we get it, and now what? We kind of came to a dead end in a sense. And I don't know if...
You thought I told you couldn't pray about it?
No, just because in the normal setting, what is somebody, these corporate people that you talk to, what do they walk away? So they've listened, but then they don't know what to do anything with it, or?
Because they can't pray?
I guess, yeah.
So I'm hearing a couple of questions in there. One is, I wouldn't go to prayer. If you think you want to fix this, and that's why you're going to prayer, I would wait a little bit longer and let somebody pour their heart out more so they really feel understood. So you're not slapping a prayer. I don't mean to imply that you would do that, but I think sometimes that's our nature. Oh, let's just pray because I can't handle this anymore. So just notice that in your timing. Actually, in the corporate world, they want to know, how long do I need to listen, Elle? Really? I don't have time for this. And I'll say the person will indicate when they're done. To me, it's a cleansing. It's sometimes we call it venting. It's sharing that burden. And those of you who were willing to share, did you feel a time when you were ready to move on, or you felt cared for enough? I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I do think there's a natural thing that happens in communication. John?
That's really good, what you just said there. And I'm just wondering if that resonates with your question, because I'm thinking of something I read somewhere where there's a question that's always going through my mind constantly with any interaction, and it's, what's my bottom line here? What am I going to get out of this? It may not even be conscious, but it's kind of always, there's this expectation of what is the ROI in this exchange right now, regardless of what it is. If it's talking to a person at the grocery store or your boss or a friend. And the answer, at least that I like, is we get each other. That's the answer for that moment. That what I get out of this is each other. The connection. And then once that happens, now there's a new energy to move on to a different whatever the need requires. But the point was the connection. And anyway, I always think of Jesus, that's what he was connecting, he was gracing and truthing, but I always expect him that he was gracing people and they connected with him. Now they were at a different place to be whatever they needed.
I guess one thing I'm struggling with is, so, we the way our life group meets, we've split up guys and girls, and so the guys meet, and those are my guys, right? So they're the guys in my life who, I would expect if, I'm going through something that I need truth from, that they would speak it into my life, and vice versa. And I know that, like, the connection thing, like, that's and that's a struggle for me. I know I need to not try to fix things, but I almost feel like sometimes the way it comes across is that it's like you can't ever speak truth, like direct truth into someone's life, because we're like always trying to move around it or try to understand. So we never really get to the point where it's like, hey, I hear you, and but this is what the word says, and this is truth, kind of thing. And so I don't know, like how we get around to that point. I'll let you. Sorry.
After listening, the next most powerful tool is inquiry. Questions. So I don't have any idea what you're talking about, but the first ones that come to mind are, after the person has done all they need to do and it's ready to shift, what do you want to do? What do you need? And even if you wanted to go there, what do you think the truth is here? And so you're asking them to do that thinking. You're not. So after listening, questions. Really powerful. John's comment made me think of, I don't know if somebody in here said it. I heard it recently, but it's one of my favorite quotes. People will quickly forget what you said, but long remember how you made them feel. Words don't matter that much. How do you make people feel? And to me, if I can remember that, and in every interaction, let them feel like they saw the presence of Christ in me, or they felt that, that's a good day for me. But man, you're always working it. You're always working it. But I can't, and the other thing is, I have to remind myself constantly, I cannot fix your problem. I can't. Because it's yours. I can walk with you. That I made up on the spot? What do you want to do? Or what do you need? And what's the truth here? But the idea, it's an open-ended question, and you're making them think instead of you telling. WWJD. No, don't do that. Sean? And then Megan's going to close us.
I just really like that, because especially when you're doing something in community, if you're the one owning the problem for them, that's never really going to help them anyway. But if they get to make the decision at every point along the conversation to say, yeah, I want to do something now. Do you have advice? Because I'd like to do something. Then they're involved in that, and you get to be a side character instead of the main character solving the problem.
And even when they said, what would you do, Sean? If they said, give me some advice, yes, I want to do something, give me some advice, I make them work it a little longer, and Sean knows that because I'm coaching him. Well, let's just brainstorm. What are some things you could do? Because whatever they're going to come up with is way better. I don't know you. I don't know what would work for you. I don't know your personality. So I'm going to stand here with you. I am going to be praying for you. I'm going to be checking in with you, but I'm not going to fix this for you. Yeah. Okay, so much more on this topic. I come to first service usually. I'm always available. If you wanted a resource to figure out how to handle something like this, I know Megan is too, staff, because these are hard things. And I don't have it right. I definitely don't have it right, but I have some ideas.
Thank you, Elle.